Behind the Middle Belt killings is Caliphate ethnic cleansing. Behind Niger Delta agitation is Caliphate seizure of oil and gas. Behind Biafra and Odua agitation, Caliphate imposed unitary Nigeria. Behind the Caliphate itself is the rogue 1999 Constitution. Elections 2023 is Caliphate's push to retain the 1999 fraud. Nigerians, say no to any further election in the country. Let's take down the 1999 Constitution and save our people and our land.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's joint Nina's Clubhouse session. Today's topic is Retake Your Sovereignty or Fulani Invaders will grab it. In the next 17 minutes, we'll be listening to a Nina's broadcast entitled Retake Your Sovereignty or Fulani Invaders will grab it for themselves. Fraud of 1999 is dead. Thank you for listening.
The series of the urgent alerts is the question of just letting everybody know that there's no Nigeria still in place for anyone to govern after the current round. I repeat, for the people rushing toward 2023 election, there is no Nigeria still in place for anyone to govern under that constitution that has been defeated. What it means is this: like you are all familiar with lands and title deeds, the document that makes the land yours. The constitution is the title deed. The 1999 constitution is the current title deed by which the entirety of the Nigerian territory is held together as one political union upon which a government is anchored, and all of what that government does and the states created and the exclusive list and every provision you see, the ownership structures created, everything you know as Nigeria, the military, the police, the electoral process, and all the institutions of state that you know, the local government areas, and all the rights and boundaries for where one begins and who takes what, who brings what, the tenure of everything you know as Nigeria. The definition of Nigeria is that constitution. The title deed by which people can sit in Abuja and be doing things in Port Harcourt to allot, to seize the port of Port Harcourt and allot to Dangote and his Intel's associates, to seize the port of Lagos and allocate to Atiku and his Intel's associates, to seize the port of Lagos and allocate to Dangote, or to seize the oil and gas of Niger Delta to allot to Dangote to refine for them in Lagos, when others cannot be part of all of that, to seize the limestone of Benue to allot to a Fulani fellow to become the richest man in Africa. Those are the things that that title deed. When you hear that the constitution is the title deed, it is the right of the owner of the estate to do with it as he pleases. That is what the Fulani is doing with your oil and gas in Niger Delta, is doing with your port in Lagos, is doing with your bitumen in Ondo, is doing with your limestone in Benue. But, and that's a big but here now, that title deed receives its life from the claim that we authorize it in the preamble that says we the people have solemnly resolved to live in unity as individuals. Because that claim is coming from the mouth of the Yoruba who are now complaining. the mouth of the Ijaw who have been complaining, the mouth of the Igbo who have been complaining, the mouth of the Fulani of the chief who have been slaughtered. That claim that they submit themselves into this union is the authorization for that title deed, is the signature sustaining that title deed. And the further claim, both of them falls, of therefore we make and enact, give unto ourselves the following constitution. That is, that we have agreed to be in one political union, and that we have also written the articles to govern that political union. That's what that constitution, that's what makes that constitution the kind of title deed we're talking about. If anything happens to that title deed, like a landowner that loses his title deed or gets the title deed invalidated, we have stepped forward, the owners of the sovereignties that are detained here, the Yoruba as Yoruba in Yoruba land, the Ijaw as Ijaw on Ijaw land, the right to self-determination, which is an incident of their sovereignty, is what Nina has rallied them to exercise together. Because we say positively that we have not met. The proof of what we are saying is also in that constitution. Let the lawyers in the land be confronted by whoever is desirous of finding out. The decree number 24 by which that constitution was imposed is printed by error in the constitution itself. Absalom Abaka telling the story of how he came about the document, say from the committee that went round and came back to him, and he now added and subtracted and declared what is left to be called the 1999 constitution. That is the full story of the document. He left an instruction in subsection 3 or section 1 of that decree number 24 of 1999. The instruction is that that decree should not be printed, should not be seen by anybody, so that nobody will ever know this dubious source of that constitution. But because that decree was printed inside the constitution, it's still there. If you go out to the traffic now to buy a copy of the constitution of 1999, you will see that decree number 24. Then you compare the story of Absalom there and that false claim in the preamble. That was what we took to court in 2007 to say we needed to invalidate that constitution on the grounds of legitimacy. It's not the legality for the lawyer, for the mediocre lawyers that are all over the place that are saying the document is not legal. The document is legal, but it's not legitimate. And it is that legitimacy that is more important than legal, because it can only become legal if it is first legitimate. If we made it, if we didn't make it, then we don't have no constitution. That's what we are saying. We're only tolerating it for the sake of peace, for the sake of, avoiding anarchy, because anarchy may come if we don't manage it the way we're managing it. But let nobody think it's going to remain like this. It wasn't like this 20 years ago. It wasn't like this 10 years ago. It wasn't like this 5 years ago. That people are now challenging everything in every part. And we have organized them to be able to do it conclusively, because it is their right that is inalienable. It's called the right to self-determination. That is their right to live in their spaces unhindered, undisturbed by anybody. The Yoruba will have that right, the Ijaw will have that right, all of those, and it's inalienable. And we have organized them to be able to exercise it at this time, in rejection of that imposition by this caliphate that imposed that constitution. And so what we're telling us now is that whether people listen or they don't, because some will think, oh, if we can get to election, then Ninas has failed or Tony has failed. You fail it. We just laugh at you, because you are going to find out the hard way that there's no Nigeria to govern by the time you get to that other end. Therefore, all the way to when the election happens, we are going to carry on. We are going to carry on with what we're doing everything we can to stop, to finalize the return of the sovereignty of the people that are hijacked here by that constitution. You can get to the election itself, and the dynamics of this debate will have gotten so bad that the election will collapse on the head of those organizing it. You can get to the day you say you've finished the election, you've sworn in the winner, as long as that winner is swearing to defend and uphold that fraud of 1999 that has my signature, he won't be allowed to enjoy the benefits of that title deed under that instrument. Whatever be the nature of the fight, there's no war for the people who will be fighting other people. That war will come. War between who and who? Look at this map again. Nobody from this alliance territory is going to be in any war with anybody in that alliance. Let it be clear. If there's going to be any fight, it will be between all of the owners of Nigeria and the invaders, the Fulani that are invading, aided by our illicit federal government. Let it be clear. Look at the map again. So there's no war that is coming anywhere. If you insist that that forged instrument, that fraud is basis of union, at the time the owners of the land have said it is no longer basis for them, and went to solemn assemblies to do so, and you think you have become stronger than all of them to now go to government house and swear to defend and uphold their enslavement, they are going to challenge you. They are going to challenge you the day after. So it doesn't matter that you wobble on and get to some kind of vote and announce some kind of result. The morning after the entire shenanigans, you are going to come face to face with the owners of the land that are saying this title deed can no longer be basis of you coming to operate in my space. That is the issue we're trying to resolve now. And it is in that light that we are reminding the owners of the land, those who are being confused now by the noise of election, come for PDP or APC or ABGA or Young People's Party, these are all distractions being thrown at you by people who are determined to take your land. And it is your choice to remain indolent and not take that land now that you have defeated the fake title deed, the bogus title deed called the 1999 Constitution. What you have done in the last 22 years has defeated that document. It is up to you to step forward and take your land right now and become the owner, begin to repair the damage of Nigeria that's been over there over 100 years in your space. If you don't, and you allow them to go to election and pretend that they are still in place, of course, the ones they promised your land are hanging in the wings, trying to take the same land. So the land is your land, your sovereignty, everything that belongs to you is on the table for takes now. If you do not step forward now that Ninas is inviting everybody to come and take their own, if you get yourself distracted going towards election, and those people who are hanging in your forest now get to where they have the opportunity to take it by force, kill you, because they are pointing guns at you. You can't touch gun under that instrument they pose. That's the reason they are the only ones to gun. The ones who are supposed to be stopping them are not stopping them because they are part of the scheme of how to hand your land over to them. So that is your situation. If you want to take back your land, this is the time to stand up and take it. If you are not taking it, those people that came from across the border, those Fulani that came from Senegal and Mali and everywhere, that are hanging in your forest pretending to be herdsmen, they will take it, and then you have a new problem. Because if they already conquered you and you are now struggling, nobody has conquered you now. They are still hanging on the land in the pretense that you approved by what that constitution, the title deed. We are pulling back our signatures. That document is dead. They know. That's why they have come to reconquer you, so that they can stand on the basis of that conquest on your land. Having been slowed down to this point, you have a chance to step forward now. If you listen to what Ninas is saying, your land will be back in your hand inside 2022. You don't even need to go to 2023. But if you are not listening and you allow the renegades from the south and middle belt who are waving political party flag and inviting you to election of PVC plastic, whereas the people that are contending with you are waiting for you with AK-47. They are waiting for you, aiming at your land. You are aiming at going to sit in government house. They are aiming at taking your land, and you are just making yourself available, validating that journey. You are the one validating the journey for how they can succeed. All of those who are buying form to go and contest election, anybody who sees this video should send it to Peter Obi, who already told us that the problem Nigeria has to contend with now is the question of the engine that is not the driver that they have to find. What has changed for him to step forward now to say he's a better driver for all of us to hire? The economic statistics that have been cited, how small money can be used to achieve big things, that is not the issue. That is not what is the issue now. Is the false claim that we are in a union. What is at issue is this attempt to exterminate the owners of the land and take their land. It is not economic statistics that will solve that problem. It is the recovery of sovereignty before we begin to talk about how to manage that sovereignty. Like the engine and the driver. If we don't have an engine in the vehicle, what kind of driving, what kind of movement will take place if a better driver comes? So let it be clear to P2B and all of those who are buying forms, Samo Habonwa, Mogalo, everybody, Rochas, Amechi. If elections were to be the solution to this problem, if elections were to be the solution to the problem we're confronted with right now, Wike will not have to come to lobby me to campaign for him, looking at what he has been able to do in Rivers State. I will be the one telling everybody that we can't accept anything else or anything less. But as it is, unfortunately, election is not what will solve the election, will compound the problem. And that's why we're trying to let all our brethren know that is what they are dragging us into. It is the caliphate that has an interest in taking us to election. The outcome of that election, they are not counting votes with you. Did they win the election of 2015? Did they win the one in place now? Did they win the one of 2019? And what are you going to do if you submit yourself to a process and they now say the international community together to say, oh, we have finished. This is the person who won. Is it at that time you now come and agree with us? If something snaps, all of those from the south, the same thing going to the ones in the southwest, the Tinubus and whoever else is buying from in the southwest. The same thing in the middle belt, the Yosha and Co. Where are you taking your people to? Where are you taking them to? In this kind of a setting, under which constitution will that election and the governance that will follow from it happen? Let us listen to ourselves down. But most importantly, let it be sounded clearly to everybody concerned, including those from the caliphate side. There's no Nigeria anybody is going to find to govern the day after 2023 election. We have a whole year to go and sort out the terms of our union. If we choose not to, and we go by brigandage like we saw Mahmoud and Monguno talking about how everybody must come, so that even if the house is on fire, election will be. That is the desperation. That is, they want to seize this land by dragging you to that corridor where they can do the finishing. It is your choice to stand up and take your land now that it is free to be taken. If you are not taking it, the ones in the forest who came from Mali and Senegal are going to take it. Then it becomes a tougher task for you to recover from them. It's easier to recover now that we have defeated the title deed by which those who are holding it now are holding it. I think we can stop there.
Thank you for listening. It's my pleasure to invite Ndidi to take the synopsis of the topic. Please, Ndidi, you have the floor. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Well, that video was made in April 2022, so about a year before the 2023 botched elections. And we are back in that same sort of situation in terms of some people already talking about the next elections. But what we need to realize is that we have a responsibility to understand what has happened to us, and we have a responsibility to exercise our sovereignty, because sovereignty is everything. So it's one thing wailing and complaining, but we have a responsibility to do the right thing for ourselves and for our children. So everything we know as Nigeria, so that's the government, the 36 states, the 774 local government areas, the miseries that flow, lack of electricity, hospitals that are not working, all these are codified by the unitary 1999 Constitution. It is the title deed. And what is a title deed? It is the evidence of a right to ownership of property. And that's why the Fulani man like Dangote, he can be given the oil and gas of the lower Niger block. He can be given the limestone of Benue for his cement, so he's the richest man. Then we have the bitumen of Yoruba Nation. They're not controlling it. We have the ports of Lagos. Yoruba Nation are not controlling it. And this 1999 constitution, it's a forgery. We never made it. So we really need to take responsibility, take it down. We didn't make it. It's forgery. And it receives its life from that preamble that says that we, the people, have solemnly resolved to live in unity, and that we submit ourselves and our land into this unitary Nigeria of miseries, of loss, and now of death, because the Fulani are empowered by that 1999 constitution to do outright conquest, because it's that 1999 constitution that puts guns in the hands of the Fulani. The preamble also lies that we made the 1999 constitution. So it is there in that preamble that our sovereignty and self-determination are overridden and hijacked. They've been detained. Now, Abdul Salami Abubakar, he was the last military head, and in 1999 he gave instructions that the decree that promulgated this 1999 constitution, because it's the schedule of that decree, that it should not be printed. But luckily for us, the printers printed the decree number 24 in error. So we did not make this 1999 constitution. And in the video we heard how they said that a group of people moved up and down and that they wanted that they created this constitution. That's not how a constitution is done. By now, we should all have done the research to find out the proper way of making a constitution, because it is that thing that's tying us down, and it is that thing that's causing so many of us to want to japa. That means to go abroad. So it is illegitimate, and it is a make-believe constitution. And the indigenous ethnic nations have not made any constitution, and a constitution is a union agreement. So if you've not made a union agreement, it means you've got no union. I mean, that's just such simple logic. I think a 4-year-old could have understood that. So we really don't know why Nigerians are having a problem with this. But essentially, we have no union agreement and we have no union. And sovereignty and self-determination are inalienable. Indigenous peoples, they have a right to live in peace in their ancestral land and to have it governed the way they want. Now, every conqueror, all conquerors throughout the world, they know the importance of sovereignty. And that's why the Fulani, who are immigrant settlers, they're black Arabs. They're not indigenous to this part. They're not even indigenous to any part of Africa. That's why they use this forgery to be in charge and to be the overlords. So sovereignty is so important, and it is actually everything. And luckily for us, we've got Ninas, so we can key into the Ninas plan and let it be our voice. And we are all Ninas because we want to set ourselves free from this Fulani conquest agenda, because they are all out killing and grabbing the land. In fact, today there was an article about Ansaru. Ansaru is just another of those black Arabs. They killed a lot of people in Niger State, and they've taken over that land because the Fulani have joined themselves with all these Islamic terrorists in this joint venture to kill us and to take over our lands. And what you gain by killing off the people, if you kill off the people so that they can make no other claim to the land, you now have sovereignty over that land. And so that's what the Fulani are doing. And they are empowered by this 1999 constitution, which is a forgery. And that's why they keep on wanting to go to elections, because elections will renew their power to be our overlords, because it renews the life of that 1999 constitution, including the preamble that dispossesses us, in that it overrides our sovereignty and self-determination. So it is really for us to take responsibility. We've got no constitution. That's a union agreement. So we've got no union. And so that is the reality. And the constitutional force majeure that was declared, we now officially repudiated that forgery. So it is for us to now, because we're back more or less to where we were when that video was done, it is for us to say, political parties, close shop, we're not going to go to any further elections under that 1999 constitution. And although our sovereignty is overridden by that 1999 constitution, we still have it. So we have to exercise it. Yeah, you just have to exercise this, man up, exercise and say, no, that this is my land. I'm indigenous here, and I will not allow the Fulani to conquer me and conquer my children. So that is that. So thank you. I yield the mic.
Thank you, Ndidi, for that detailed synopsis. At this point, may I invite the NINA spokesperson, Mr. Tony Nadi, to make more clarifications. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome, everybody, once more to our weekly town halls, where we look more closely at some of the things that you have to know concerning the campaign we have at hand. As Nigeria continues to wobble to its sure terminus, to its graveyard, unitary Nigeria, and as the Fulani continue in their desperate attempt to conquer the rest of Nigeria, we come to the continuing campaign to waken up those in that danger. What NINAS is doing is not it's not a theoretical thing. It's not some story that you come to listen to and go away and come back at another time that you have some little time. Fulani is marching to your space wherever you are in Nigeria, because they have nowhere, of their own. Their fathers, their grandfathers, their great-grandfathers were always looking towards here for where they could create a homeland. Mark the word create. And how do you create a homeland for yourself? You dislodge the owners of that land, kill them off, validate yourself in that space, and be the sovereign, take over the sovereignty. What is this sovereignty? The land occupied by a distinct people, unchallenged by others. And so if you were in Yoruba land, if you are Yoruba dwelling in Yoruba land, you are Ijo dwelling in Ijo land, Igbo on Igbo land, that is what vests you with sovereignty. That is the right to be in that space by yourself, to be the one that have to negotiate how you federate or unionize with other lands. That is your sovereign right. That is what they call the right to self-determination. You are the one deciding. When you are no longer able to do that because there's a supervening power, most of the time, that supervening power is what we describe as suzerainty. That is where a foreign or an adverse sovereignty matches itself into your space. Just power. It doesn't have to be a sovereign power in that sense. But when the British, for instance, came in here and set up a governance over us, they are a foreign entity with adverse interests to ours. They had the power, just sheer military power, by which they enforce their view, their will, their desires over and above whatever we may have preferred for ourselves. So you could call it conquest. And so they began to govern us. But our sovereignty remained with us. They didn't exterminate us such that Yoruba was no longer in Yoruba land. They didn't exterminate us so that Ijo was no longer in Ijo land. Imagine if in those times they first came, signing treaties, trading treaties and protection treaties with the local kings and kingdoms. Imagine if at that time their objective was to take over the land, like we saw in South Africa, the Boers. If the objective was to take over the land permanently, they could well have brought more of their own people. They could well have killed off quite a number of whoever that had to be killed off. At the end of the day, you can see that the Boers in South Africa are not going nowhere anymore. The place have become part owners of the sovereignty, and they could have been whole owners if they were not challenged in the manner that the ANC and the other anti-apartheid, campaigners had to try to do. In the midst of all of that, eventually they had to negotiate after fighting for 80 years under the apartheid constitution that was imposed by this suzerainty. A bunch of foreigners, white-skinned foreigners, becoming the owner of the entirety of the land of South Africa over and above the black indigenous people and peoples. And so we are in that kind of a situation in which there is an active attempt by the Fulani invading this space. We saw how Uthman Danfodio got here and what he managed to do in the Hausa territories. We saw how when the British got in here, what they managed to do, up to the point they merged what they got by deceit, because it was always a combination of deceit that becomes conquest. When Uthman Danfodio got to Sokoto, he started by deceit, convincing the Hausa indigenous people that their kings were corrupt and that the Islam they had was an inferior type, that they had a purer version, and that is what would make that is what will provide better governance. And so the Hausa joined them in getting rid of their kings, who they were convinced they were corrupt. So the Fulani took over their palaces and have been governing them to this date. All the emirs you see, they are related by blood. They know exactly who has to go where, whose son, whose daughter, whose cousin. They know exactly how they relate. They won't tell you. You may just think they emerge. They know the complex web of their spread, who has to be where, but they are related by blood. And so, having imposed themselves in those parts, the British came when they came by guile and deceit, signing up trading treaties that became protection treaties that then became the hijack and confiscation of sovereignty. Because eventually when the crown took over, from the Royal Niger Company, there was a military force started by constabulary, West African frontiers, all kinds of things. Guns came in. Governance began to be set up. And then by 1914, they had merged all they needed to merge to become the Nigeria that they got. That Nigeria, remember, has the indigenous nationalities, the Yoruba and the Igbo and the Jo and the Ogoni and everybody else, the Tiv, the Berom, have been here for thousands of years, hundreds of years in some of the cases, but they were in their ancestral spaces, and therefore sovereignty belonged to them. Even at that time in 1914, even at that time in the 1850s and 60s, sovereignty belonged to them. What happened was that a foreign power, supervened, suppressed their sovereignty. The fight for independence was to recover that sovereignty, the right of ultimate power, ultimate control in your space, meaning that you owned your land and everything underneath it, and the control of the air above it. Ultimate control. Therefore, the governance structures you want must be your prerogative to set up. The culture, the education or infrastructure, whatever you want to be in place in that space is your prerogative on account of being the owner of the sovereignty, the owner of the land, and the identified owner of the land. Yoruba in Yoruba land is the identified owner of Yoruba land. Ijo on Ijo land is the identified owner of Ijo land. If Yoruba land and Ijo land and Edo land and Berom land and Igbo land will become Nigeria, it must be the discussion between the owners of those various parchments of lands that will now become one political union to be governed as one political entity by a system of government and structure of relationships in terms of formations. Are they going to be Northern Protectorate and Southern Protectorate? Or are they going to be 4 regions? Or are they going to be 10 states? All those things are products of discussion because everybody is bringing their land. It's all about lands and peoples that will federate. It's all about the terms of that federating. It's all about the boundaries of responsibilities and duties and all the powers that everybody will have. Those things must, on account of the sovereignties, those things ought to be discussed. What happened to Nigeria was that from the time those supervening invaders, foreign powers, first the Caliphate, then the British, then the joint venture, all the time they were doing that, they found a way to avoid any discussions. So it was with the owners of the sovereignty. So where we are right now is that they carried forward what they first did in 1914. They carried it forward through 1922, 46, 54. You hear about Littleton, McPherson, and all those constitutions. At no time did they come back to the owners of the sovereignty, the owners of the land, because they have set up a governance system that suppresses those owners, working at cross purposes against the natural boundaries, like the Berlin Conference that divided Africa up amongst Europeans sitting in Berlin. That is how all these states that they've created have also, just drawn the lines where it will suit that entity that is now occupying the space. The discussions we had in Lancaster House to be one political union of 3 federating units that now created a union office was sabotaged by the British. And so at the time they left in 1960, it was incomplete decolonization. They knew what they were doing. They were deceiving Awolowo and Azikiwe and all the Mobubokoye and the Nohoro. Those people thought that the British were leaving and therefore they were taking over. But the British left booby traps, creating structures that left their nominee, their joint venture partner, the Fulani, with veto powers over the rest of us. They created parliamentary seats. That is you could only form government. Then it was parliamentary system they had adopted. In addition to a federation, which is to allow for the diversity to be managed better. In that federation, they adopted federation model. They adopted in 1954 because it was unitary up to that 1954 when the British were doing things directly by themselves. It was unitary. But looking at the diversity at the time they were living, they had to accept federal. Federal means you are recognized as the one coming to federate. It's not that center, because the British could start as center, because at the time Lugard was to govern the entire annexed or amalgamated Nigeria. It was just them governing their estate in the manner they could best do. But when the owners of the land had to be brought to that pretense at allowing them to govern themselves, it was on account of them being a federation of 3 regions. And in that 3 regions, the British that wanted to leave veto powers in the hands of the Fulani created the structure in which the northern region of the time had 55% of the parliamentary seats, and the 2 southern regions that became 3 in 1963 when the Midwest was carved out of Western region as a part of the suppression of Awolowo and his influence. It became 3 regions in the south plus the federal capital, the Lagos colony, that had become also hosting the federal capital territory for Nigeria. So they were, because each of the, even that Lagos federal capital territory, just like Abuja has a House of Reps and senatorial seats today, the federal capital territory of Lagos had its own parliamentary seats apart from and aside from the parliament of the western region of the time. But when you combine those 4, that's the eastern region, midwestern region, western region, and Lagos federal capital territory, you got the 45% of the parliamentary seats left. What did that mean? At every point in time, the North could, take a decision in parliament almost without consulting anybody else. If you are lucky to be told, they look for who will sabotage the others. They will always find the Shekiri that will want to sabotage the Urobo because of local problems. They will always find the Ogoni that will be ready to sabotage the Ijo, the big neighbor. And so, at every point in time, they had people who, flawed characters that will go with them to do whatever they needed, any more votes to be able to, that pretense that it is Nigeria doing it. And so, we have to understand this backdrop so that we can relate properly with the transaction at hand. That transaction at hand is that they never allowed the owners of the land, the owners of the sovereignties that are conscripted into the Nigerian Union, that became the Nigerian sovereign entity dealing with the rest of the world on our collective behalf. They never allowed the owners of the land to discuss that union and how they will relate, which is what constitution is supposed to be. That's why we call constitution union agreement. Even by 1963, what the pretense that it was the nationalities that empowered the parliament of the time, parliament cannot make constitution. Parliament does not have the power to make constitution. It was on account of that incomplete decolonization of the British that it remained the business of the parliament in Nigeria, just like it is today, where they are discussing constitution in the National Assembly of Nigeria. It wasn't ever the business of parliament to discuss the sovereignty of the people. It was because the British didn't hand that sovereignty over back to them that they continued to, use the middlemen they had groomed, like Nigeria is using the middlemen they had groomed today. Akpabio is presiding over a senate, nothing to do with the sovereignties that make up Nigeria. He was just nominated, coronated. The same thing with all the other people. The same thing with the president. We have not made any constitution, but he swore to defend and uphold the instrument that was imposed on us. He is commander-in-chief, sending military all over the place to go and shoot people. He is part of that Nigeria that we did not discuss, that federal government that we did not institute, the federation we did not subscribe to, because it is basically a unitary, imposition masquerading as federation. It can't be federation if we are not on the table, if the constituent components, if the federating units are not the ones setting up that federal government, mandating it with powers it donated. I mean, the federating units are the ones to donate what will become the powers of the federal government. But we have a situation where all of that got toppled 6 years into our experiment. The one of 1963 was not a departure from 1960. It only accommodated one new unit. But the guns, what the British did not do as they were departing was to redistribute the guns that they had monopoly. The British had monopoly of control of the guns at the time they were governing us. And at the time they were leaving, they left all the guns in the hands of Ahmadu Bello, deliberately, because at the last minute, when all the fight for independence had happened, they were opposing the independence. When Enohoro moved the motion in 1953, it was the northern delegation that blocked it with their numbers that the British had allotted them from all the census and the parliamentary seats they created in those, rigged census arrangements. And so it was deliberate on the part of the British that wanted their agent to be in charge of everything, to have veto powers over us, because it was always their joint venture, the joint venture of the Caliphate and the British. That's that Nigeria as a project. So they continue to suppress our sovereignties. They continue to impose the rules, and all the attempts by the nationalities to get back to that discussion, the nearest we came to discussing meaningfully was in Aburi, and the only business that they went to transact in Aburi, let those who did not know now. The regions already had autonomy over their assets, and they could work those assets. They had their priorities, and so Awolowo could do what he did with education, Emeagwara could do what he did with agriculture, Ahmadu Bello could do what he did in his part. But the guns, the control of the guns had not been redistributed to match that autonomy. And so while you were busy building, the man with the gun is sitting and watching. Any day he wants to topple you, he toppled you. That was why Ahmadu Bello and his secretary called Tafawa Balewa, who had then become a prime minister at the nomination of Ahmadu Bello. It was because they had monopoly of the guns that they were able to stop the Awolowo that won, that much better in the election than them, in absolute figures and in every other thing. He ended up on trial, ended up in prison, and by the time the Yoruba that Awolowo was leading, by the time they began to resist and say no, the constitution of the Western region, which predated the independence, because they all went to Lancaster House as 3 countries that were going to discuss a union. And so each of them had their constitutions, meaning that their autonomy was in their hand. Their sovereignty was not yet back in their hand because the British was still holding that sovereignty. But when they finished in Lancaster House, there was this pretense that they had handed back their sovereignty. But what they gave to them was bogus, because it was to Ahmadu Bello that they, handed the baton, because the guns that were supposed to have been put behind those 3 regions were left at the command of the one that had formed government. And so he began to do crazy things, starting with suspension of the Constitution of Western Region, which was the representation of their sovereignty at that point. So the Caliphate took the sovereignty of the Yoruba on the 29th of May in 1962 as a part of managing the suppression, the subjugation, the what do you call it when you quell resistance. It was as a part of managing the resistance of the Yoruba to the overthrow of their autonomy that they suspended the constitution altogether of Western Region, appointing a sole administrator called Dr. Majekodumi. The commotion from that suspension of that constitution never abated. Another election came. You can imagine it was 1959 they did the election for the independence, for the handover that they had to do in 1960. So 4 years came, 1964, another election was due. Because in those days, it was federal election, it was regional elections and federal elections. That is, the regional elections did not happen at the same time as the federal elections. The regional elections, brought in people that would manage the region. The federal elections would then the people that would go to the center. And so it was that unrest that followed the brigandage that attended both the independence election and the immediate aftermath that continued unabated. Law and order broke down completely in Western Region. I'm sure you must have been hearing about Wild Wild West, the wait here. And so everything got into disarray, and the soldiers came in because it was the same Ahmadu Bello that was doing this havoc in Western Region, that was also doing the havoc in the thief areas, because the thief were also resisting them in all of the kind of things they were doing. What was going on? Ahmadu Bello, armed with the veto that the British left with him and all the guns that came with that veto, was overrunning the rest of the country in the jihad that Uthman Danfodio had started, which he became the champion. Go back to that battle script of 1960. So you can see that he was clear-minded that it is the land, the entirety of the Nigerian land, that the Fulani will have to take for themselves as the inheritors of the estate of Uthman Danfodio. That was how Ahmadu Bello described the entirety of Nigeria, estate of Uthman Danfodio, which will be owned by, controlled exclusively by that caliphate. But for the intervention of January 1966, nobody knew where the matter would have gone, because it was a jihad. It was kill them off, take the land, own it forever. But when it was distorted by that intervention, it then became a matter of pushing and pulling, everybody trying to recover into some kind of back to what I think I didn't finish that. What they went to discuss in Aburi after the second coup. The first coup was young officers trying to stop the politicians in their madness. The second coup was a revenge by people who thought that more of their own people had been killed, and it was the British that set up that false narrative, because the young men that did the action, the revolution, were not acting as ethnic representatives. They had plenty of everybody from every side, including Ademoyega, that is Yoruba. There were Ijaw people in it. Even in going to the residence of Ahmadu Bello, the Usman Katsina was part of the team that went with Nzogu. The ordinary people were rejoicing in the north because of the kind of thing, this same kind of thing we see going on today, where the Fulani is beating down everybody else. The ordinary people, the Talakawas, these ones that are challenging them today, were rejoicing the day Ahmadu Bello was killed in January of 1966, January 15. So this pretense that all the Igbo went to hold a meeting to come and behead other people is falsehood, orchestrated by Britain and marketed by the proprietors of unitary Nigeria, of master and servant. aided by the renegade elements that joined them in the alliance they built in 1967 to advance their own pursuits. Look at all of us now. Who has been spared by that monster? Look at the entirety of Middle Belt. Have they been spared? Even as Gowon was their champion in those days, even as Danjuma was their champion in those days. Have they been spared? Look at the Niger Delta. That they convinced down the road some of the elements from there again joined. Look at Yoruba land. And so it was all pretense upon pretense, avoiding the owners of the sovereignty every step of the way. But when you listen to Murtala Mohammed commissioning Ben Wabeze's committee in 1975, you will then understand that it was clear in their mind that they were stepping into the suzerainty of the British. What they went to discuss in Aburi at the time everything had collapsed was the question of redistribution of the guns in the land, so that the regions could have enough weapons under their control to defend themselves against any aggression that might come. They agreed on it, they came back, the British encouraged them to abandon it and take over the entire Nigeria with those guns. Of course, they managed to package it as let's go and beat down the Igbo. Oh, they beheaded all of us. It was a deceit. And if after 57 years, those who shed innocent blood in Nigeria are not willing to own up to what they did, are not willing to get back to correcting what could be corrected by acknowledging the sovereignty of all the parts, each of the parts. I tell you, the Nigeria they have now is sitting on a non-existent foundation, because as God will have it, they now had to forge our signature to put on the latest title deed. In the event we had on Saturday, you saw how we broke down the entire thing to show that the Constitution is like the memo and article for the enterprise Nigeria, and that the shareholders are the owners of those constituent components, the Yoruba in Yoruba land, the Ijo in Ijo land, the Igbo in Igbo land, the Edo in Edo land, the Tivi in Tivi land. They are the shareholders of the enterprise. They are the proprietors of the enterprise called Nigeria. And as a federation, they should be the ones, creating a federal government standing on their own constitutions, on their own autonomies, on their own sovereignties. It is the collectivity of those sovereignties that mandate a union office they call the federal government, and any part of the sovereignty that is now ceded to be able to create a union office was always the business of the federating units to donate. But when the management team, the government of the time, toppled the memo and article in 1966-67 and replaced it with their own memo and article, that is what we have on the table. And what is it we are trying to do now? What NINAS has done is to identify these problems for what they are. Identify the victims and the aggressor. There was only one aggressor, because the British are not here in person in terms of white men occupying our government house. But their nominees, their agents, the caliphate, and whoever they find to recruit from time to time are in that government house. And the instrument by which they have now formally confiscated our sovereignty is that constitution. But they lied that we the people solemnly resolved to live together. That means we submitted our lands and our people to be managed on the terms written into that constitution. Go back to that preamble. We the people, we the Yoruba, we the Ijo, we the Ogoni, we the Igbo, having firmly and solemnly resolved amongst ourselves to live in unity forever, indissoluble. All lies hereby give unto ourselves the following constitution. Again, another lie. And so they put our signature, that's why we say the document is a fraud. And when we are talking about the constitution as a fraud, we are saying that our lands and our people were conscripted into this union by that pretense that we submitted by ourselves. That is what the fraud is all about. And if on account of having been so conscripted without our consent, we have now lost our economic assets, therefore the oil and gas of Niger Delta is lost to that suzerainty called Nigeria, shared out as what do they call it, oil blocks and all kinds of concessions. The ports were concessioned, the solid minerals were concessioned. So Dangote could go to take a limestone of Benue and become Africa's richest man, and all such. Some people are mining gold, not only in their own Zamfara, but in Oyo. You saw what happened in Ibadan the other day. And the governor was asking, the people said they had no remorse. They said, we are licensed by the federal government to mine the gold. Don't come and molest us, because there was some explosion. And so, in that, where we err is that we, as the vanguard, as the framework of the owners of the sovereignties that are confiscated into the Nigerian project, that are conscripted. When you take somebody into something against his own volition, you are conscripting him. Our sovereignties, that's our lands and our peoples, were confiscated and conscripted forcefully into the Nigeria that we must now salute and obey. Nigerians call obey. And look at the hooligans that are talking about departing from the anthem. Apparently they had what we said about their anthem and their pledge. They now want to run back to the one in which the one they are going back to is even worse. Because when you go through what it was Nigeria in the eyes of the British, native, tribe and tongue. In brotherhood we stand. Which type of brotherhood? That Buhari will lead the Fulani to come to kill off people to take their land, and I stand with him in brotherhood. Fool! We are proud to serve Nigeria. Which Nigeria? Why can't we discuss that Nigeria? And so, it is all a lie. It has come to crumble, and it is because the owners of the sovereignties have organized themselves to take back their sovereignties and collapse the union if need be. That is, if the only way to recover from being expropriated, if the only way to save ourselves from being overrun in conquest, that is murderous conquest, because somebody may be conquering you to govern you. It's a different ballgame from the one who is exterminating you to become the owner of the land, which is what the Fulani is trying to do. Already doing, just that they've not gone too far. Unfortunately for them, it is this constitution they put our signature in that has authorized them. But we're also playing a role, and that is the one we have control over. To reverse that role we're playing in sustaining them in that conquest invasion. That role we're playing is going to election with them under this constitution that enable them, that put the guns in their hands exclusively, that put them as the owners, authorize them as owners of our economic assets, and all the powers to work those assets. So you don't get electricity if they don't give you. You don't get road if they don't give you. You don't get security other than what they give you. And if they are the ones organizing the insecurity to kill you, tell me. And so we are playing a role. All of those who are doing political party under this constitution are the ones playing the role of sustaining this conquest agenda, of sustaining these killings, of sustaining this expropriation, of sustaining this subjugation.
It doesn't matter the name of their political party. Election is the renewal, the cycle of renewal for that constitution. And it is because they are going to become governor and senator and president to go and make the kind of money we read about every day. In the fraudulent, flowing from the fraudulent constitution that gives them the spare key to the treasury, that gives them immunity from any kind of probe, that absorb them of responsibility towards us. These are the contents of that constitution. And they say you authorize, they say it is you that wrote that constitution. And you have people with education, you have people with enlightenment. Every 4 years, they will mobilize people to go and vote. What is the mandate? What is the mandate of those who get to government house? That constitution defines everything they are doing, including the corruption you see. We took us through the provisions that create corruption and protect the beneficiaries of corruption. And so, that role we're playing in sustaining this conquest agenda and the killings that go with it, and the impoverishment that go with it, and all the pain and suffering that go with it, that people are running away from, the owners of Nigeria are running away to become slaves across the world. Go to the US, go to Europe, go to Asia, go to their prisons in the East Asia, go to the Sahara Desert, go to Mediterranean Sea, going into Europe. It is this constitution and the proprietors of unitary Nigeria that swear to defend and uphold that constitution, that contest election under that constitution. They are the ones behind the woes of everybody else. But it is within our reach if we get to know. Look at this town hall that we are addressing now. Look at the number of people present. Where are the rest of the people in this danger that is expanding by the hour? Where are they? They remain in their ignorance, telling you, oh, great leadership will come tomorrow morning. Then characters like Peter Obi and Pat Utomi are going about mobilizing. Last night he was in Dallas. Peter Obi was in Dallas last night, by this time yesterday, talking trash about how Nigeria will be great. We must stand up to them, all of them, in PDP, in APC, in Labour Party, in ABGA. They are the ones that are selling our lives away for the crumbs they make. If we cannot stand up to them, if we cannot tell them no, if we cannot fight with them to say you can't take us to another election, then we truly deserve to perish. We deserve to be killed by anybody who comes to our space in the name of that constitution. What is there in saying to them, gentlemen, enough of this? By which constitution are you going to govern? We won't go to this election any further. We won't let you deceive those who do not know, because the populace don't know. The populace think that another election will bring a better leader. But that better leader will come. We still have this preamble in place, locking us down into a union of death. That leader will come. We have this constitution locking us into that 6-state formation and 7-4 local government formation, in which we are hopeless political minority. Another leader will come. 68 items on the exclusive list will still remain. The guns are in the hands of the enemy. Your governor cannot issue one rifle under this constitution. So how is he going to organize your defense? And he's called chief security officer for your state. He's allowed to blow siren. He's given security vote. So he's happy, him and his family. His family will not live here, they're in the US. If he has cough, he can go to London hospital. But you are stuck with whatever you find here. So if you are the one that will have to go with them to do APC and PDP, and you've been told by those who woke up before you to know what the problem is, who have taken risks that you cannot imagine, for those listening to this presentation, this broadcast, this town hall address, the risks that were taken to uproot the British, to uproot the Caliphate, the Fulani, to uproot the soldiers from government house, the Buhari and the Bangidas and the Asramis, the risks that were taken. You don't want to come on any kind of head-on collision with the people who took that risk. I repeat, the risks that were taken across the last 25 years to get to where we are now. You don't want to be found on the side opposite from those who took that risk on everybody's behalf to come to where we can now finish. And the obstacle between us and finishing are the greedy, unthinking, viciously wicked renegades from our parts and the hopelessly ignorant rest of us. So very stupid that their stupidity will drag us to the next pit. Pit after pit. It is the stupidity of that majority that go to election under a constitution that guarantee their damnation. And so, I'm sure you recall the broadcast we titled Drawing the Battle Line. Go to YouTube, go and look at it. That constitution is the middle, is the line, front line, is the middle line between those who stand with that constitution, those who sustain this evil, and those who are seeking escape from that evil. The people who subscribe are all of the proprietors of political party, whether they are the council or ward or state or national, APC, PDP, Labour Party, ADGA, all of them subscribe to that constitution. They are the first line of enemy you have in this matter. If anybody shoots you in Southern Kaduna, if anybody kills you in Plateau, if anybody is molesting you in Ife, if anybody is beheading you in Ekiti, it is the people you know from your part who swear to defend and uphold that constitution, who subscribe to that constitution by way of doing political party under it, that are responsible. And that is why we say the one of 2023, thank goodness, it ended in fiasco. And we have this interregnum. Tomorrow now they will roll out drum and begin to mock themselves for being in power. Let those who can research go and find out what is behind May 29th. They laugh at us when they beat the drum and we come dancing. It's like lions beating the drum and antelopes dancing out because the antelopes have been convinced that it is in that drum that their salvation is. But it's lion beating the drum. Antelopes are multiplying, thinking they're getting fat. You know how the story will end. That is what it is every time we come to celebrate at the invitation of the Fulani, May 29. It was May 29, 1804, that the flag of Uthman Danfodio was mounted in Gober. That is this place we call Sokoto today. Find out why it was May 29 in 1959 that the self-governance was achieved by Northern Region. That's the day of their own internal governance, their own internal independence from the British. The day the British handed over to them to govern themselves. There are many things we don't know about the people dealing with us and who we have to deal with. But they all package it as Nigeria. Nigerians call obey. And unquestioningly, like antelopes, we go obeying the rules set by lions. I'm sure some of us saw the news. This is the latest one. I'm sure some of us saw in the news that the federal government has dragged the 36 state governors to court over local government autonomy. We suspect that Tinubu covenanted with the caliphate as part of how he will be coronated in an election he didn't win. We suspect that he covenanted with them to get the Ruga through for them. This local government autonomy is worse than Ruga and waterways put together. The local government autonomy that Tinubu as president is trying to railroad What does it translate to? If that law is passed, remember when they tried to do amendment of constitution and Ninas was able to block it in the 9th Assembly. They've come back again now, but it's the federal government and the Attorney General and the Tinubu, the President, they are the ones now pushing it. We suspect that he covenanted with the Fulani to deliver our land to them by pretending that local government will now be autonomous. What does it translate to? Local government election will now be conducted by INEC. INEC is under the exclusive control of the people we're talking about. When they are the ones that will conduct the election in your local government, it is anybody they put there that will be there. And if you do not know it now, that they have been depositing their own kind in your midst across the length and breadth of Nigeria. That is, those people selling suya in your communities, they are under commission. They are commissioned in that conquest invasion agenda to impregnate the young girls that come to eat their suya. Some of the children born in all those years, it's still ongoing. They speak your language, they are not of you. They bear your names, they are not of you. Some of them have come to the age of becoming even governors from the time they first arrived. These are all parts of what they've been doing to alter the demographics. Quite apart from the ones that walk with their legs from Mauritania. And so, the moment that law is allowed to pass, and now it is the president of Nigeria that is pushing it. Oh, that local government, the money will go directly for them to do all of whatever. The governors will cease to have any kind of control over the local governments because the election will be INEC conducting. The allocation, the money they share. How did local government become a tier of government to now be getting allocation of monies that are confiscated from everywhere? 774 units of them imposed by this same caliphate on all of us. So they get that money. The election is conducted and they put the people who are loyal to them, your traditional rulers, whom you think are on your side of this discussion. Their salaries come from 5% of allocation to local government areas. The lands that are not in the hand of the governor to manage, most of the time fall into the, the local government have things they do between them and traditional rulers. But if the money that they have to spend must come from allocation from Abuja that goes directly to them, you can be sure that the Fulani will sit in Sokoto and determine what happened in your community, to your land, because between the traditional ruler and the local government chairman, there is no land left, land and water. Anything they choose to do with it, they have the final say, and no governor can even intervene on your behalf because it is now something coming from the center for them. They can insult the governor and the heavens will not fall because governor is no longer able to remove or appoint them. The traditional rulers, because of the 5% they get from the monthly allocation of local government areas, will try to be everybody will try to be in the best book of the local government chairman. Who can be a Fulani man bearing your name? Because INEC will be the one conducting the election. Up till now, the state electoral commissions have been the ones, conducting the local government elections. So at least, to a reasonable extent, the governors may be as rascally as they want to be, but at least it is the state that is organizing the election. They can bring people from their party and all kinds of things. It will be far worse if the Fulani become the one to elect, to manage the process of electing who will be your councillor, your council chairman, because they all contest. One will then be chairman among the many that will win. Some run for chairmanships or run for councillorship. So Fulani will be the one organizing all of that in the name of INEC, sitting in Abuja. Whatever is left of your sovereignty today will be washed away. And your land and everything that has to, they are controlling you at the state level now, and you are complaining. They are going to control you at the community level, because your councillors will come from your community. Your chairman of local government will come from your community. And nobody in the state can talk to them if Abuja is the one paying the piper. That is the that's the latest addition to the long list of dangers we have been living in. This one happened inside this week. That the federal government of Nigeria, I'm not deceived, there's no federal government anywhere. The interregnum president, aided by his Attorney General Fagbemi, have gone to court, taking the 36 states, to say the governors don't want the money to get to council area. It goes beyond money. It goes beyond money. What have the governors done with all their own allocations? What do you think the local government, the Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees, who don't understand anything, and they're just, I don't know how people enter into this union business, that they become so blind, deaf, and dumb to the point of stupidity. They don't understand anything. They're only thinking about money that will come. Immediate money for less than 1% of the population. That is why they're going to submit the entire population to the ownership of the Fulani. That is what that law will mean. And our best bet, our best line of defense for what is already happening, for what will happen more, is to reject this constitution and shut all of them down. Because if we say no more, even the amendment and the suit in court and everything they are planning to do will collapse that same moment. That will be the end of this invasion. That will be the end of this expropriation. That will be the end of this free fall of economy. Because we then take charge of our economic assets and begin to repair the damage of 114 years. We know where we're going. Freedom from bondage. We have identified what the obstacles are. Our own renegades subscribing to the constitution and the election. That Nigeria erected on the foundation of this falsehood is already gone. If we do not stand up to take back our sovereignty that have been detained by that constitution, those who are on a conquest mission, armed by that same constitution, armed with that same constitution, are going to take those lands for themselves. And it will be because of our own carelessness and refusal to listen. Let's ask, let's pray that it doesn't come to that. And let us also bear in mind that those who have taken this risk across this length of time to push back this enemy to the point where we can finish the task, and some of our own people are trying to stand with that enemy, to them, those who are plotting to take us to election, we are going to have a fight. We are going to do whatever we find to do to stop them, including any kind of fight with them. It's a cheaper fight than waiting for when Fulani come in conquest with AK-47 that we cannot touch. It is to take down this constitution now that is our only hope of recovering in this generation from what has happened to us across the last 114 years. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for the very insightful explanation. It is now time for comments and questions. Please raise your hands or tap your mic twice, and you will be invited to ask your question or make your comments. Thank you. Alhaji Tajudeen, please, your comment or your question. Alhaji Tajudeen, please unmute your mic.
Okay.
Thank you. Please ask your question or make your comment, please. Alhaji Tajudeen.
Yes, am I on now? Am I on?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I first of all, I think the first thing to do is to commend the secretariat and commend our spokesperson. And I will liken I will give an example because this is a general assembly of multi-religious listeners and audiences. The end product of the shouts from Ninas and our spokesperson that they should embark on this embark on a trip that will save them from impending doom. This time is not going to be water. Only God knows what it is. And I will give you one example. When Pharaoh was tormenting the Israelites, God, in his knowledge of what will likely become of that Israelite, and he now made him he made Pharaoh to have a very lovely wife that he cannot do without children. No issue. Then God now sent Moses. The way Moses got to the house of Pharaoh is what I want everybody to now take, because you understand it far deeper than what I will say it. It was this same Pharaoh that now nurtured Moses. Moses now destroyed the fortune of Pharaoh. We should not have to wait till that much long before we act. What will likely become of them is that some of them, some people are fugitives in they are fugitives in their home fatherland because they built houses in different places that nobody knew that they had a house. Some people, when there is a crisis in Jos, they died. I know many, at least 4 now, that in this estate, they don't know where their property is. At the burial site of Otumba, Shade Olukoya, Dr. Salami and I were having some mini conversation to now think of dovetailing into or graduating into a town hall meeting. But the one particular man kept on asking Dr. Salami, but what is the way out? All these things our spokesperson have analyzed in a very, very logical sense. Can somebody imagine that Lokobiri will now be commending Tinubu for CNG? Should that be the basis? One should not be worried. I thought we will handle this matter the way we handle issues in university. No, it's beyond that. We cannot afford to lose one single person because of less than 1,000 people, and our people are making themselves willing to. So therefore, one of the immediate solutions is that whether they stumble into Nina's Clubhouse radio, or they stumble into this our YouTube program event and all the rest, where material abounds in multitudes. But the thing is that if our town hall meeting are going simultaneously everywhere, and that is where the Christian forum our spokesperson had, should be commended. They are the people that will now fight themselves. Look at what is happening in Kano. We allegedly read that the one that left before Sanusi came has started retrieving and retreating. So there are a lot of problems coming over problems. What has Tinubu done now as an achievement that anybody has to celebrate? Is the Fulanis. That is the point I want our people to, our audience to listen to. Do not be afraid. Our spokesman used to say one thing. I know some of us that are busy on the site of Nina's will not find strange. And you know what that means? That he will do everything possible. If a single alphabet of that 1999 constitution is taken to be part of anything, there is no need for any such thing. I will do worse things. I prefer to be an Ijebu man than being referred to as a Nigerian under Tinubu. Tinubu is never a Yoruba project. We are not known for what we are experiencing. So therefore, the more the town hall, that whatever they hear from our spokesperson, whatever they read from the secretariat of our Ninas, I'm proud of it. I am in Ninas to the core. my current youngest daughter in the house is going to 6 months June. Whenever there is a APC, you will see Jagaba again is there. They will change the station to the worst thing is change it to dish. Who are the people showcasing achievement of Tinubu? Is it not the same Fulani? Look at how they are going to shoot themselves at the back, at the leg. It is this local government thing. So they see one federal government to be conducting election, and somebody is giving $200 million to somebody, a professor, where there are no academic work going in his domain. Is that what we want? Let me stop there. But thank God that Dr. Salami said he had briefed our spokesperson. By the special grace of God Almighty, it is this Tony Naji that will lead us away from this bondage. But we have to get more hands, more people, more groups to get ourselves liberated. Thank you. Let me yield the mic for others to contribute.
Thank you, sir, for that comment. Any further comments or question?
Yes.
Adoma, do you? Okay.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, our spokesperson, and thank you, Nina Secretariat, for all the efforts you have been putting out there for people to listen to. But unfortunately, like I keep wondering and I keep thinking that the kind of spell that our people got stuck to, I wonder the kind of devil that made that spell. That when people hear things like this, they still sit tight where they are. In Igbo parlance, they say that it is only a tree that hears that it will be cut down and it stays put where it is. Our big problem is that we hear this truth and we know this truth, but we hoard it. We don't even spread it. We don't spread this truth. And we are waiting for this person to go and do this for us. Why, my people? Why? Nobody will bring a new person to this clubhouse to listen. No person will even share or spread the good news the person hears. It's very unfortunate. Sometimes I used to think that people, I don't know whether to say that they are lazy or I can't even call it ignorance or dishonesty. But something greater than all these words are holding our people. Somebody sees the light and prefers darkness. For example, those of them who are chanting Biafra and all that. I listened to an interview and I liken this man they're holding, the leader of IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu. I don't want to, bring it as a topic, but I want to make a clear distinction that this man doesn't mean well for our people. Now, the interview was about the Palestinian Liberation Organization. I want to bring it in because there is a fierce battle, a fierce war going on in the Middle East. This man called Yasser Arafat, he was an Egyptian man, and he, a con man like Nnamdi Kanu, carved out Gaza and called it Palestine. The same way Nnamdi Kanu carved out a phantom Biafra that has no map, that has no beginning, has no end, and called it Biafra land. And people are, clinging, and they see that there is no way to this thing, and they still cling to that. What kind of devil is leading our people? Because I am totally, very, very, how do I put it? Very annoyed with our people because they are holding us down. They know that freedom can never be given You go and take that freedom. And you have the mechanism, you have everything set down by the Ninas. And Ninas continuously crying and shouting on top of we are all Ninas. Crying and shouting on top of our voices that this is a danger. Don't go there. You will go to politics today, you will go to channels, you will go to arrest, you see people there. And they keep, I don't know how to put all these things, honestly. I don't know. I am getting more confused. What is leading our people? What is leading these youths? What is making them not to sit up? And the next question, the next foolish question they will ask is, do you think a Fulani will agree? Hey, oh my goodness. Because you don't know who you are. You don't even know that you are greater than all those people because there is no Fulani land. Go up, go now, go south, go up, go down, go north, go south. You will never see or hear Fulani land. But you know there is Hausa land, there is Yoruba land, there is Igbo land, there is Ijo land. And these people are openly coming to you and telling you that you don't belong here, that you are not indigenous, that they, the invaders, are the indigenous people. Look at what we are hearing about this local government nonsense. What is local government? What is the state? Local government, we have the councillors. State, we have the state houses of assembly. Fulani government of Nigeria, we now have a senate and the house of rep and all that nonsense. And they will keep giving allocation, and they tell you governance to the grassroots. What are they telling you? What are you understanding from all these things? That an invader is coming to take over your land. They will issue you a certificate of occupancy that you are no more the owner of that land. We are talking about sovereignty as it has been explained. The sovereignty includes the people and the land.
They just buy the simple lie. That is the problem we have. It's not that people are not spreading the information. It's that most people are not listening. They are finding the excuses. Even those that have found out that IPOB is a fraud. Those that haven't found out still believe that it's just the IPOB is a method. And what we are doing is a method. That they are following IPOB. And will refuse to analyze what is being sent to them. That is the problem we have, and withdrawn on our side at the right time. Enough people will get the message and act. The encouraging thing I see there is that the Hausas have gotten to the extent that they are now even more prepared than us to get rid of the Fulani. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. That is the only thing. Let nobody be discouraged. There is light at the end of the tunnel. If the Fulanis are now running helter-skelter, that the Hausas they believe they have enslaved are now telling them to go. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. By the grace of God, we will prevail. Okay, that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Mr. Chike. Mr. John, please, you have the floor. Mr. John. Yes, thank you.
Are you hearing me?
You're sounding... No, not much.
Hello, let me start.
Get close to your speaker. You're very far from your speaker, sir.
It's very faint.
Yeah.
Hello? Hello, let me talk. Whether you can hear. What I am saying is, what I have been able to
Mr. John, please try and adjust your system. Let Reverend Salami speak, then we'll come back to you, sir. Kindly mute your mic, Mr. John. Let Reverend Salami speak while you adjust your speaker. Reverend Salami, please, you have the floor. Thank you, sir.
Once again, just to appreciate the spokesperson and the entire NINA Secretariat for the job done at the NCA and also at Otumba's burial. God bless you all. And I want to draw attention to this, the comment Chick made that the Yorubas are following the IPOB. That thing has been corrected for the labor some of us are putting in here. That thing has been checkmated. That is, you cannot see them, I mean, except through the internet services, you find all those things coming up. So far, like Lajutaji has already buttressed, we are doing a lot of underground work here, which has checkmated all those things, which is an improvement and a blessing to let that NINAS is well aware on the ground and the work is going on. Just trusting the Lord that everything will gather together somewhere along the line. I yield the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. In the absence of any further question, because I can't even see Mr. John, Mr. Onyago, please, you have the floor for key points.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, all. The topic for today is a very, very rich one, and thank the spokesperson, Mr. Tony Nadi, as well as the Secretariat for the wonderful job. The history lesson here, which is the greatest wealth anybody can inherit, is so powerful. I know we are concerned about the information going wide. We're doing our best, and surely, even when they're adamant, nobody can resist the truth. We will continue to speak. We will continue to speak. I pray that people will listen and hear. But I know that when this message gets so wide, you can't resist it, because this is pure history. There's a problem. One of the key points is that there's a problem at hand, serious danger. There's a very serious danger at hand, which is this Fulani invasion. It is real, and we are seeing it every day. Just like the key person has itemized, the problem has, or is almost overwhelming us. You can see that even in Jos, this week, they killed about 40 people. These are the records we have, not to talk of those that are not recorded, because sometimes it's always more than that. And you see that the survivors of those who were victims today, who died today, were survivors of yesterday, who did not pay attention to the situation. And if we continue to ignore this reality that's before us, the survivors of today will become victims of tomorrow. Those who have died, it's keep them. If they will go after those who are alive. They've overtaken our forests. They are after our government. And these people, we are taking them, most times our people take them like, we underrate them, we underestimate them. We must understand that these people have a formula that they have perfected over decades. It has worked for them. This same formula that they are working on today, that you see them spread in our society, in our forest, that's the same formula they used in conquering the Hausa people. It worked. I'll give you a little history of the church history. When the church started, the Romans were killing them. The Roman government were killing them. The church did not respond. And when they won over the Romans, they faced another confrontation of jihadists who were willing to spread jihad across the land of Europe. Now, ask yourself, why did the Christians not hold their hands in that scenario? That was when that incident, the response of the Christians which was led by the Pope, the Catholic Church, it led to the formation of crusaders. Study the church history, we discovered that there was a time that they have crusaders. Crusaders are recruited soldiers, Christian able-bodied men who became soldiers to fight. They picked up arms to resist the jihadist movement. Even before then, they have overtaken Jerusalem, overtaken Ephesus, all of those parts in Turkey you hear today, which were in the Bible, has already been overtaken. So the church had to go to war with the jihadists in order to reconquer the territories that they've taken. Why did the church go to war? Why did they not pray? Why did they not endure the persecution like they endured with the Romans? Because they understand that this situation of conquest by the jihadists cannot be resisted by mere, folding of hands. I'm not calling for war. I'm calling for consciousness for us to understand the level of, danger that we are in. We must be responsible enough to organize, to put down everything that puts us in this bondage of debt. We must be responsible enough. Our people in the South must organize themselves because of the danger ahead. To see how they are getting to the government and all of that. Not just in Nigeria, because this will have a network. In France, you see how they are taking over the government. In the UK, see how they are taking over the government. They know how to, they know these politics very well. So we should not underestimate them. It's also clear that sovereignty belongs to the people. Ninas has emphasized, explained this, that even the layman can understand it. What we need to do is to take it to our fellow brethren to come to terms with it, because I think lack of history and the feeling of ignorance that we have is the reason why our priorities are not aligned. People are still thinking today that leadership is a problem. They have not come to terms that constitution is the problem. They have not come to that term. And that's why we are always after changing leadership, not realizing that the problem we have at hand is the constitution that must be put down. So that is the direction we need to drive our people towards. While they are being distracted, we have to make our efforts to ensure that the people are informed in this regard. The Fulani invaders will not stop. They won't. They will continue to push until they gain. They are very tough and resilient people. So we must not take them lightly. And so for us to reclaim our land, we must move into transition as quickly as possible. We have to. The only action we have to take is to retake our sovereignty by any means necessary. By any means necessary, if the need be. So this is the key point of this topic tonight. Thank you very much. I yield the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Onyige, for that generous key point comments. Mr. John, I'll just give you 1 minute to make your comment or ask your question, because we have spent so much time to this section. So, Mr. John, please, you have the floor for your comment or question. Okay, your network is not cooperating. Mr. Olu, please, you have the floor for your comment or question. 1 minute, please. Mr. Olu, if you can hear me, you have the floor for 1 minute.
All right. I want to commend the Secretariat for this effort. May the Lord deliver us in this problem that we have as we work and do all that we need to do. So actually it's just to commend each and every one of us and to steer us that we need to work. So on my side, I'm doing a lot to connect people to get to understand that the problem we have is the constitution. I reside in a part of the north that some times back they took over the land of some indigenous people. So and these people now came with a letter from one of the emir to do that thing. So and when I heard about it, together with some of my people, we confronted the Fulanis that were doing that. All for them to tell the people that you people are having certificate of occupancy, that just the way that you mentioned not quite long ago, that does that make you the owner? So the matter went to court, they are here and there, and all, but today those people have lost the land. So these people are gaining ground every day, and we need to do something about it. So going to landlord association in different communities, wherever we are, business association, we just need to spread this information. Thank you so much. I yield the mic.
Thank you, sir, for that. Please, Pastor Desmond, you have the floor for closing remarks. Thank you. Pastor Desmond, if you can hear me, unmute your mic. You have the floor for closing remarks.
Good evening, and thank you everyone for your presence in today's section. It's quite pathetic what we have been hearing every day. I know that each and every one of us here have been trying his or her level best to spread this message across as much people, as many people that we can reach. We did it with all the zeal. But the problem is that our people are diehard. Most of them, the problem we have is that most of them are ignorant. Most of them are interested in following the politician. This white men, that's the British and the Fulani people, they are using the same strategies, just like some of our speakers have earlier said. The same trick they have been using to deceive right from 1804, when they invaded the Northerners and succeeded. They have been applying the same tricks, just like the Bible said, the same trick that the devil used to deceive Adam and Eve is the same tricks and lies that is using to deceive the people of today, and people are falling for them, for the same fool. So it's a pity to fall fool several times. So it's just that our people, they don't want to learn. Our people doesn't want to learn. That is why they can easily be played around. But all what we have said tonight, the good thing is that the opportunity have represented itself for us to retake our sovereignty. The opportunity that this constitutional force major have given to us, the painstaking effort of our spokesperson and people like him have done to push down that caliphate instrument which they use in binding us, tying our hand behind our back, have been beaten down. If only our people will rise up now, seize this opportunity, they can retake their sovereignty. We can retake our sovereignty. Let us learn from the past. Our founding fathers were deceived by the Europeans and the Northerners, the Fulanis. Our politicians today are being deceived. They promise them they will give them a presidency. They promise them they will give them Senate president. They promise them this and that. And they choose that and undermine the sovereignty of their people. So that is the people we need to work upon. And now we have found that they are not ready to save their people. They are not interested in the sovereignty of their people. So we have to bypass them, just like Ninas has been campaigning. We have to ignore them and do it by ourselves. So let us retake our sovereignty now by the means that Ninas has preferred, by the solution that the Ninas has presented, by not going to another round of election, by not following these selfish politicians, these wicked politicians. Otherwise, in the shortest time, they might succeed in dipping the Bible, I mean their Quran, at the Atlantic as they have vowed. Thank you everyone as we rise up to this task or challenge that is at hand. Thank you. I beg to yield my mic.
Thank you, Pastor Desmond, for that closing remark. At this point, Mr. Nadi, please, any additional comments from you before the announcement to end today's section?
Not much, just to thank those who have come and to assure all of us that, yes, we speak the way we speak, we shout the way we shout. It's just for everybody to bear witness, and you hear it from time to time that, the people have been shouting for a long time. But what you hear in that shout all fit into 20% compartment of what is being done. The 80% remains in the other compartment of what needs not be said. If anybody thought it was just by coming to talk that all of what was done got done, such a person should rethink. And when we get to the threshold of where more of things that will compel things come to be done, it won't be by persuasion. We have done all that needs to be done to persuade. Of course, more people are turning up now. They're going to take this information and spread. But let nobody fret. Let nobody feel disillusioned, because the plan goes beyond the talk in the manner we see it. That's all I can say for now. Thank you once more. I yield the mic.
Thank you, sir, for that. Please, Justina, you have the floor for the announcement and end of today's section. Justina Simon.
Good evening, everybody. Am I coming through, ma? Hello, am I coming through?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. You're coming through. Thank you.
Okay. I want to say a very big thank you to everybody for coming for tonight's eye-opening section. These are the announcements of our activities through the week. For us to work effectively and efficiently, we'll be having joint Clubhouse sections together at 7 p.m. Nigerian time on Tuesdays, and on Saturdays, we'll be having the Daughters of Truth on Facebook and YouTube at 5:30 p.m. Nigerian time. Please, we are all encouraged in the immediate task of massively disseminating NINA's project materials to all our people. We are to sensitize our people via the NINA's website, www.ninasvoice.org, and on YouTube, NINA's Voice on YouTube, where we have over 400 videos, and we admonish people to watch and share them widely. For further information, you can call the NINA Secretariat on 0912-993-155. And the second number is 090-647-20016. At the count of 5, this Clubhouse section will be shut down. The countdown begins. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Goodbye and God bless you.